I want to talk about something that is extremely common, but considered controversial to talk about, although that doesn't mean much because we're living in a time where saying 1 plus 1 equals 2 is controversial, or stating a clear definition of what is a woman is considered controversial. And that is mothers using their children against the fathers. I mean, that can happen when they're still married, but usually in the case of divorce or separation, and essentially sabotaging a child's love for their father, and yeah, using them as a weapon against the father because they know and understand on some level that that is one of the most effective ways to try to harm them or get back at them. Um, I can speak directly from my own experience, although the more that I look at my own experience and share my experience with others, the more I realize that this is a really common thing. I've seen and heard this story so many times. It's like the playbook when a mother or two parents decide to go to war. Now, when this happened to me, my parents divorced when I was 5 years old. My father did not want to get divorced necessarily, even though he did not want to be with my mother. He thought it would be better to stay together for the sake of the children, which I've also heard from other. I have a best friend who his parents did that. They wanted to split up. They didn't necessarily want to live together, but for the sake of the children and doing what's best for everybody, they decided to find a way to work together and coexist. Now, this happened when I was 5 years old, and when my mother broke the news to me, I was devastated. My father meant everything to me. And I made that clear that I didn't want them to get divorced. And of course, I was not heard or considered at all in that process. The laws were set up in such a way where the mother automatically gets the vast majority of the time with the children, even though we're supposed to be living in a time where there's apparent equality between the sexes. Of course, there was no kind of assessment or evaluation of who would maybe be more fit to be a parent, and therefore who would receive the majority of the custody time, or how that would be allotted. And it was terrible not having my father in my life most of the time. I mean, growing up in a single mother household, where the, you know, my mother did a lot of work to basically brainwash us and sabotage our relationship with our father. So my sister, by a pretty young age, had a lot of anger, and so growing up in an environment like that, when I was the only one who I loved my father, and I had too much love for him, and I was too young that I couldn't really be brainwashed. I didn't really even understand it most of the time that was being done unto me. And yeah, it was awful because I grew up with a very angry, emotional mother who was in a constant state of war and fear, and a very angry sister who would, physically, verbally abuse me, because of course she copied the behavior of the mother and that hatred towards my father. So the same dynamic between them was essentially the dynamic I had with my sister. And oh my gosh, I mean, as well, I didn't even really grow up with a mother for that matter, because divorce is extremely hard on the family financially. You know, you suddenly have two parents that are both having to each maintain a household. So my mother was always busy working all the time and busy trying to essentially uh, replace my father as the provider and protector. So I basically grew up with like babysitters, nannies. Eventually, a stepdad was brought into my life, and I mean, that was maybe better than not having any man in the household, but that's a whole other story. That was a whole other mess. They ended up also divorcing in a huge war. Um, so yeah, what can I say? It was shitty. I really missed my father all the time. I had a deep yearning for my father. I remember I would, for instance, like sit in my backyard, just staring at the road that went to our house, just like wishing, hoping, waiting that he would one day, turn up to pick me up. Um, and yeah, of course, like no one, the courts, nobody actually asks the children to see what they want, who they would like to live with. I mean, if anybody had actually taken the time to see and check how I felt, I would have told them that I wanted to live with my father. I would have picked that. Yeah, no question. Um, you know, growing up without a father, you have a deep sense of insecurity. Um, I mean, I remember my mother, for instance, like sleeping with like a baseball bat under her bed, and just thinking like, oh my gosh, like we're like even at a young age thinking like, man, we're screwed. Like if anything ever happens, or if I'd get bullied in school or anything, it's like I knew I had no support, no backing of any kind. Um, the few times that my father was in my life, and I would be in situations like that, I mean, he would stick up for me. He would protect me. And the little bit of time I was able to be with him and stay in his home. I mean, I always felt just such a deeper sense of security, and with that, a lot of self confidence. I remember just feeling like I could just live and just explore, just like be a kid without fear and without a parent constantly kind of like monitoring me and trying to control me and control and manipulate like who I was and how I thought. Um, I was shown throughout my childhood from my mother that it's like it was wrong to essentially have love for my father. And anytime I would want to express myself, or I would maybe um, even lash out from the issues that I had from not having a father, I was met with like an intense, ferocious like shutdown. It's like I was never allowed to question anything, to challenge anything, and if I dared to, oh man, like I would catch hell. So I learned to cut myself off from my own feelings and emotions and self-expression, and learned at a young age that I can't express myself freely. And again, the little bit of time I was able to spend with my father growing up, it was the opposite. I felt safe. I felt like I was never judged. I felt like I was never being controlled or manipulated, and like I could just be myself and express myself. And the little bit of time I did spend with my father in his home growing up, even though it was the vast minority of the time, it was always very memorable. It was always like good times, happy times, good memories, pretty much all of the like positive memories that I have from childhood was the little bit of time that I got to spend with my father. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my father, because I know that in the same way, like, having me and his children as a responsibility to look after and everything, it also made him a better person. And I truly believe, I mean, I could see that it wrecked him, everything that happened to him in the divorce and with his children. And it put a lot of strain on our relationship throughout my whole life, even into my adult life. I mean, I was shown that it was normal to be angry and towards my father, to be angry and resentful and emotional, and to blame him, and to constantly, disrespect him and defy him. And that was to no one's detriment but my own. And like, there's always a justification, of course. Mothers will often claim that, oh, this is to protect the children, and try to defame the father and say, oh, he was so awful, he was so bad, and present it in a way as though it's in the child's best interest, or use some personal conflict to justify it. Oh, he cheated on me, and therefore he shouldn't have a relationship with his children because he cheated on me. It's like, well, he didn't cheat on the children. Not to say that it's okay to cheat, but the point being that a problem between a mother and a father isn't a problem between a father and his children. So the main thing I want to get across is that this is like one of the worst things that you can do to a child. So many children, maybe most children now, grow up without a father. And like, it's a huge problem. And I mean, the only time I could ever see that being truly justified is if the father is a literal, like, physical danger to the children and the wife. Again, having a personal problem with the father is not a valid justification for taking him out of his children's life. Calling him a bad person or a narcissist, or defaming his character in some way. I mean, I'm sorry, any father could just as easily say the same thing about the mother, but fathers tend to not do that. This tends to not happen very often in the other direction. It really takes like a certain kind of evil to sabotage a relationship between a father and his children. And yeah, the irony is that everything is in reverse. In my situation, it was actually the mother who was the one who was unfit and who was the dangerous one for her children. I mean, in doing that, what a mother is really showing is that she's in fact the one who has no love for her children, while the father will tend to not do that, and within that prove that they usually are willing to do what is best for the children. And maybe the greatest irony of all this is that in the end, it usually just ends up hurting the children and even the mother, and like really backfiring on the mother. Even if they, because first of all, you create a family of chaos. You create angry children. You have an angry mother, probably an angry father due to what happened to him. And so everybody's angry, and it's just your example as a child is dysfunction. And so you create chaos. So any relationship that is maintained throughout that is going to be a chaotic, tumultuous, dysfunctional relationship. And oftentimes the children they end up hating their mothers as a result, and even having resentment towards their fathers because their fathers weren't able to protect them effectively. And yeah, it can really backfire on the mothers as well, because kids grow up, and even if a mother is able to brainwash the kids or hide the truth from them or whatever for years and years, I mean, a kid can still wake up one day when they're 40 years old and realize they've been lied to their whole life. And then, oof, I mean, imagine the amount of backlash that comes from that. So, mothers, within doing this, you're only hurting yourselves as well as your children, as well as the father. And yeah, it's got to stop. I know that Costa Rica is the first country ever. They just did this recently, I think a couple of years ago. They passed a law to make parental alienation a criminal offense. And it's about time, because this happens a lot. I mean, yeah, I hear this story so often. Because there's financial incentives behind it. We've set up the law in such a ways that in the short term, the mother can really profit and benefit from doing this. And when you create an incentive to destroy families, a financial incentive to do that, I mean, what's going to happen? All right, that's it for now, guys. Thank you.